stock of the day is Qantas. And Scott, I don't know if you've been following that task of finding an AFL CEO, which I reckon maybe the task to replace Alan Joyce has been even longer than that long-winded process.
Andrew, I reckon it almost certainly has, mate. He's hung on Alan Joyce, and I got to say, mate, I think in the financial world we have a slightly different view to maybe the rest of the country, or maybe not. Luke will give us his view in a minute. I think Alan Joyce has actually done a really good job of running what is generally a tough and ugly business to be in, which is airlines. I generally have a view that if you can leave the post of CEO of an airline without going broke during your tenure, you've probably done a pretty good job, because it's a terrible business, generally speaking, with generally awful economics. So if you can escape unscathed, that's almost a win in itself. Joyce has obviously got some brickbats around labour relations and potentially the brand, and I have to say that may still be playing out. So again, speaking of asterisks, as I was earlier, I'll put another one on Qantas's performance thus far at least. I've got to say, they reckon if you're going to take on a new job, you want to have an easy act to follow. I'm not sure whether I would want to take over as CEO of Qantas. So take the pay packet, maybe it's worth it, but this is going to be tough. We know airlines have traditionally been terrible businesses. We know COVID's been tough. We know the situation that the airline is in now, having had effectively restricted domestic capacity, both Virgin and Qantas independently. I always want to be clear. I'm not alleging any sort of inappropriate or cartel behaviour, but they're both making very rational capacity constraint decisions, which have seen profits go through the roof for Qantas. Virgin tipping in a profit for the first time in years. I'm not sure that's necessarily a peak. I'm not going to make predictions, but I have to say, given that's so rare for airlines to make any sort of decent money, I don't want, again, if you're staking your career on taking over from Alan Joyce and doing even better, I dare say that's going to be a very, very difficult task indeed.
All right, so obviously not buying it. If you hold the stock, though, would you continue to do so?
No, mate, I wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm always mindful. If I have never liked Qantas, so if you own it, you have a different view to me and just start with. But the reality is that these are cyclical businesses generally. Now, there's always, the first time for everything. Maybe finally airlines are rational enough to be then profitable businesses thereafter, and we look back at the last 50 years and say, thank goodness that's over. That's always possible. I don't think it's very likely, particularly internationally. And I have to say, if you look at local ticket prices, if you look at local capacity, other things, if both Qantas and Virgin remain very, very, very self-interestedly rational, and there is no third or fourth airline, governments don't change the rules, there's not an inconceivable chance they remain reasonably profitable. But I think the share price already allows for that. I think if you're buying today, you have to have some view of how they're going to go even better in future. I don't know what that future would need to look like to grow profits from this already elevated point. So, No, if I owned Qantas shares, I'd sell them today.
All right, okay. So, Luke, it's currently Qantas shares off 2.75%. Market having its say. So, Vanessa Hudson, she's going to take over in November. In fact, the chairman, Richard Goyder, is saying the appointment allows for a smooth transition. Qantas is extremely well positioned. So, do you agree with that? What are your thoughts?
For the vast majority of large cap businesses, Andrew, I think that the revolving chair of a CEO probably doesn't matter a great deal. You've got ingrained processes and institutions and bureaucracies, to be quite honest, with most large businesses. And the person at the top probably doesn't make that much of a difference. And there's a small handful of businesses where it actually does. And I think Qantas is one of them, because Scott made the fantastic point. This is an industry that is just cutthroat. It's so tough to eke out a dollar, and you need the right person at the top. And Alan Joyce, famously when he came over, took on the unions and sort of focused really hard at a profitability level for Qantas and getting it to where it is today. So, as a passenger of Qantas, of course, I don't think any of us are in love with Alan Joyce, but shareholders in the financial world, I think you at least have to respect what he's done. And it's probably rational to me the share price has this sort of reaction to the news. Turning to the business and where does the business go from here? Again, I think Scott's pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's had a really good run through COVID. A lot of that is the utilisation that's coming through from not only the pent-up demand of travel, but the restricted supply. And we just know this is an industry where supply and demand always trend to a happy medium where no one really makes any sort of super profits. And at a group level across the whole industry, it's probably a loss-making sector. I expect that normality to come back at some time. How long, who knows? But I think Scott's right. The share price is quite optimistic that you'll get a few years of outsized profits from this business, and I'm just not quite sure that's the case. The other point as well is that as much respect as you want to give Alan Joyce, I think it's pretty clear he's probably underinvested in this business over the last few years. There's been a few broker notes floating around that they've been a bit light on capex, a bit light on fleet maintenance and new planes coming into the fleet. So the new CEO's probably got a bit of a hospital pass here and maybe has to spend 2 or 3 years really reinvesting back into that core. But that's the cycle of this sort of business. And fair play to Alan Joyce. You ride the cycle and he goes out on top. That's what he would probably always aim to do. So, look, I would sell it as well. I probably can't sit here and tell someone who's owned it for a long time to sell everything, but you've had a fantastic run. I think there's a lot of question marks over travel and Qantas specifically. Taking profits here, I think, is a pretty prudent decision for most people.
Okay, all right. That is a double sell for Qantas. All right, let's